All right, we are live. It's Thursday. You are live if you're with us. Usually takes a few moments for people to start joining. But if you're with us now, watching later, welcome to the Little Nessie Happy Hour podcast. I'm Dave. My business partner on my right is Ron Stowers. We go live every Thursday. We usually try to target 3 p.m., but you know, we're not always on the ball with that. It's 3:07 p.m., so we're 7 minutes late. But either way, welcome to our show. Ron and I are owners of Little Nessie, and we go live every week. And our business is mortgage and real estate, more specifically, the marketing side of things. I've been in mortgage marketing for over 15 years. Ron has never specifically been in the marketing in a marketing role per se, but you know, when you're a head of sales, you have to understand marketing, have to have your wits about you and know something about it to be able to hold your own. And that's Ron. He's been in senior executive positions at many companies. Well, actually not many, some companies. He's how long were you with Loan Depot, Ron? Like 12 years?
12 years. Feeling like I'm about to get a demotion here, Dave. Like you're working towards a demotion.
No, just giving our viewers a little background if they're new to the show. But Ron and I chat for about an hour every Thursday, like I said, 3 p.m. East Coast time. If you're not following us on our YouTube channel, we'd appreciate it if you head over there and give us a subscribe. And that's where we post some of our content. We're about to lean way heavier into the whole podcasting thing than we have before. We've been doing it for about a year now and we like to just get our reps in, whether or not we feel strong about our content every week, which we do 98% of the time, but sometimes there's some topics we're like, why did we talk about that one? We'll kick it off with a little monologue. I realized last week that I'd been going way long on those monologues, like close to 15 minutes. So I'm going to try and cut it down today. And then we'll talk about, we've got 5 topics that we're going to dig into. We'll spend about 8 minutes each on them, and hopefully you get something out of it. We'd love to see your comments. If we have comments come in, we will likely show them on the screen and we'll talk about them. We'll answer them. We'll have some dialogue with you. So if you're seeing it on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you're seeing it, drop some comments. Actually, I say that and I just realized that the program we use, we can't see comments on LinkedIn within our platform. So if you are watching and you want to engage with us and you're on LinkedIn, head over to the Little Nessie Facebook page or YouTube channel. But with that, let's tell them what we're going to talk about today for this week, Ron. So let's get into that. We're going to kick it off with a monologue that we call From the Gut. And if you don't know the two gentlemen on your screen, on the left is Brad Williams and on the right is Peter Dinklage. And I'm going to use them as an example of 2 different kinds of approaches to branding yourself and how they kind of look different, but they have the same purpose. So that's your From the Gut monologue that we'll get to in probably about just 2 minutes. So hang on if you're interested in that, and there will be a business lesson. And then Ron usually leads the way with our main topics, and I just kind of sprinkle in my dumb questions and my ignorant comments in there every now and again. So Ron, what are we talking about this week?
David, I'm looking forward to our slate of topics next week because we have one kind of full, heavy lifting. We're calling it the ALCHEMIST, and we're going to talk about the NEXA UMortgage acquisition. We're going to look at it from a different angle, which I'm looking forward to. And then we're going to, downshift a little bit and have some fun, get McKenna on camera and talk about some more topical stuff. First, it's unbelievable that Gen Zers think sports betting is a legitimate investment strategy. So we're going to talk about that, give some statistics and the reason why. And producer McKenna is going to explain this image, but we'll hold off on that.
I don't think that image needs much explaining.
We're going to talk about upcoming grocery store price war and what that could mean to the American home buyer. We're going to try to connect the dots. I'm looking forward to that topic. And then we're going to look at customer loyalty by car brand and see what kind of insights we can kind of get from that, and then project them onto the relationship between a loan officer and their company, because there's going to be some interesting correlations there. And then finally, we're going to talk about it. If we have time, we get to this. We're going to talk about we're all living in somebody else's utopia, and we'll explain what that means. But just think indoor plumbing. And then with that, that's the slate of topics, Dave. I'm looking forward to From the Gut.
All right, here we go. Let's roll. From the Gut, coming your way.
Hey, by the way, we didn't do cheers.
Oh, we didn't. Okay. Let me get the music back on. So it's all right. Cheers.
What kind of Scotsman are you?
Yeah, sorry, Slanch. If you've got a drink in your hand, it's probably early. Ron forces me and McKenna to put a drink in our hands every week. So if you're following us, watching right now, cheers to you.
Company culture around here is brutal.
From the Gut, here we go. All right, quick clearing of my throat here. So I am talking about two guys. You saw it when I was talking about the overview of what we're talking about. If you didn't see it, you'll know what I'm talking about in just a minute. But there's some things about you that people are going to notice before you ever get a chance to introduce yourself, especially in the world of social media. Now, you don't get to control that, but you do get to control, you do get some control over what they understand after that initial meeting or thought. And I started thinking about this because of two guys who have something very obvious in common, and yet they've approached it in almost completely opposite ways. The first is Brad Williams. If you don't know Brad, he's a stand-up comedian, one of my favorites right now. And he was born with, forgive me if I butcher the pronunciation of this, but he was born with achondroplasia. Achondroplasia. It's a form of dwarfism. He's been doing comedy for more than 20 years, and he's built a massive career around people, around making people laugh, often by talking directly about the thing people notice first when he walks on stage. He's absolutely hilarious. I've got a short clip just to give you an idea of who he is. McKenna, go ahead and roll that clip.
I got vaccinated 3 times. 3 times, let's be honest, I probably just needed one. Look at me, my first shot was a booster, okay? I got vaccinated. Now, I was very lucky. I didn't have any side effects, none. But some people did. Some people had side effects. Don't get me wrong, I was worried. I was scared there was gonna be side effects. What if one of the side effects is like, it cures dwarfism? That would suck for me. I'd have to rewrite all of these jokes. My wife would leave me because she's got a fetish. That's right. I don't have a dwarf wife. I got one of yours. That's how you know I'm really good at this job. Brad, you're a comedian. Are you funny? That's who a
So that's Brad. And what I love about his comedy is that he doesn't pretend the most obvious thing about him isn't there. He leans into it. He jokes about being a little person. He jokes about how people react to him. He tells stories about things that have happened to him specifically because of dwarfism. And apparently that started early in life. He talks about this on stage. Brad, he talked about how his dad knew that other kids were eventually going to make fun of him. So rather than pretending that would never happen, his dad helped him prepare for it. He taught him how to joke back, how to own the situation, how to make something that could have been used to embarrass him and remove some of its power. I think that's fascinating because Brad learned very early on as a kid that there was a part of himself that he just couldn't hide. So instead of being ashamed of it, he learned how to own it. Now compare that with Peter Dinklage. Most people know Peter is Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones. And if you somehow never watched Game of Thrones, you saved yourself about 70 hours and a lot of emotional trauma. That said, I love the show. It's one of my favorites. But Peter's performance as Tyrion was incredible. He played the character through all 8 seasons. He won multiple Emmy Awards and became one of the most recognizable actors in the world. I've got another short clip of him just to give you an idea. McKenna, go ahead and play that.
I've always wanted to see the Wall.
You're Tyrion Lannister, the Queen's brother?
My greatest accomplishment. And you're Ned Stark's bastard, aren't you? Did I offend you? Sorry. You are the bastard, though.
Lord Eddard Stark is my father.
And Lady Stark is not your mother, making you bastard. Let me give you some advice, bastard. Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like armor, and it can never be used to hurt you.
What the hell do you know about being a bastard?
All dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes.
So here's where the comparison gets interesting between Brad Williams and Peter Dinklage. Peter Dinklage has had also enormous success in roles where his dwarfism mattered to the character. Tyrion in Game of Thrones, he's a dwarf. His size is part of the story. It's part of how people treat him in the show. It's part of the prejudice he experiences. But Tyrion isn't interesting simply because he has dwarfism. He's a brilliant character. He's funny. He's complicated. And Dinklage has been very outspoken throughout his career about wanting exactly that. He's talked about turning down roles that reduce people with dwarfism to a joke, whether it be an elf, a leprechaun, or some kind of fantasy prop. He's talked against that. And then that conversation really exploded a few years ago around Disney's live action remake of Snow White. Dinklage criticized Disney for remaking a story involving 7 dwarves in a way he felt was outdated. Disney eventually changed its approach, but then something interesting happened. Other actors with dwarfism disagreed with him. Some essentially said, wait a minute, those are 7 jobs. Those are 7 of our jobs, and now those jobs might disappear. That's where I think this becomes much more interesting than simply deciding whether Brad Williams is right or Peter Dinklage is right. Because honestly, I don't think either one is wrong. Brad Williams seems to say, this is part of who I am. You're going to notice it anyway, so I'm going to own it. I'm going to joke about it. I'm going to turn something that could have made me insecure into part of my strength. Peter Dinklage seems to say, yes, this is part of who I am, but don't make the mistake of thinking it's all I am. And those are really 2 sides of the same lesson. You don't get to control what people notice first, but you can influence what they understand next. And I think that matters a lot for loan officers and real estate agents because people are doing the same thing with you. They're noticing something first. It could be your age, your personality. Maybe it's the fact that you're the person who talks about VA loans all the time. And a lot of professionals make one of 2 mistakes. The first is trying to hide everything that doesn't fit what they think a mortgage professional or a real estate agent is supposed to look like. They become so focused on appearing professional that they remove everything personal. So their social media becomes rates, closing photos, market updates, and very little else. So your audience might understand what you do, but they don't really know who you are. Brad Williams is a pretty extreme example of going the other direction. He took the thing people were already going to notice, and instead of hiding from it, he made it part of the connection. And that's personal branding. But Peter Dinklage gives us, that's a funny word to say. Peter Dinklage gives us the other half of the lesson. Don't let one thing become the only thing. Because you've become known as the VA loan expert. That's great. There's a guy that I know, I can't remember his name, doesn't matter. That's great. Own your VA obsession or first-time homeowner obsession, whatever it might be, own it. But that doesn't mean every piece of content has to reinforce the exact same identity forever. People might first follow you because you're great at VA loans. And I'm using that example just to stay consistent, but maybe over time they learn you're also a dad who coaches your kid's baseball team. That second layer matters because people might arrive because of one thing, but they usually connect because they discover there's more underneath it. And I think that's where a lot of personal branding gets misunderstood. People hear personal brand and think it means finding one gimmick and repeating it forever. You wear the same hat, you say the same catchphrase, talk about the same niche, and yes, consistently helps people remember you. But if that's all there is, eventually you become a character, not a person. Brad didn't allow dwarfism to become something people could use to embarrass him. He took ownership of it. Peter didn't allow dwarfism to become the boundary around what kind of actor he was allowed to be. He pushed beyond it. So one leaned into what made him different, the other refused to be limited by it. And I think the best personal brands do both. They don't hide the thing that makes them memorable, but they also don't let that thing become the ceiling. So if there's something people naturally associate with you, don't automatically run from it. Maybe that's the doorway. Maybe that's a thing that makes someone remember your name, but once they're paying attention, give them more. Show them another layer. Let them see your perspective and humor and values and the things you actually care about. Because you may not get to choose what someone notices first, but if you're willing to actually show them who you are, you have a whole lot of influence over what they remember. That's my From the Gut this week.
Another excellent From the Gut, David. And I'll tell you, as I was listening, what struck me is this story could have easily been about Dolly Parton. When you're saying what people, first see you as, and then then they actually get to know you, who you are, and that was one of her magical traits, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. May she rest in peace, Miss Parton.
Absolutely. But it's the same thing, right? What she attracted is her Appalachian imagery. And then she always hoped to be known for more, something else. But she used the first thing to open doors for the second thing, which was great.
Yeah. I think there were 2 points to that. One, exactly what you just said about what people notice about you first and how long that stays with you, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But then the other point of how two people with the same thing kind of taken two different approaches. So you might have, again, I'll stick on the VA lender piece. You might have two VA loan officers that are big on social media, but they take two totally different approaches,
Oh, absolutely the case. Absolutely the case. But well done. Another really well done From the Gut. I was going to comment on Peter. The thing that, I most remember him from is Elf.
Yeah. I almost used the video that I played of him. I almost played the one when he's in the conference room and runs across the table. I actually downloaded that and I was torn between which one to use. But yeah, that's another big one of his. It was a smallish part role compared to the one in Game of Thrones. That's why I chose the Game of Thrones one.
And it somewhat contradicts what you were saying because he was somewhat playing up, being a dwarf and, Elf.
I think that's why I chose not to use it, because I pulled up the clip where he's running across, and Will Ferrell kind of, he uses those epithets. Is that a correct way to use that term? Towards him, I won't say him, but anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about our first main topic, The Alchemist. This could be an interesting one, Ron. This week, some breaking news. It was earlier this week, right? It wasn't last week.
I think it was over the weekend. I think it broke on Sunday, actually. And there's been a ton of news on this. As I said, a ton of ink spilled, and we're not going to repeat what everybody else is saying. It's super interesting. It's interesting in so many layers. People are, commenting now, Mike Cordes and, what's the guy from UMortgage? I can't forget his name. That's old age. Anthony Casa. How they've been, feuding for the last 5 years, calling each other names in the media. So it was somewhat surprising that they're going to merge. But, they had shared meaning a C-suite level person had left UMortgage and gone to NEXA and played, mediator and got the two together. And there's actually more in common than not in common. And so they really quickly got a deal where NEXA bought, UMortgage, and it's a win-win for both parties. And the thing is, and here's the thing that really the headline is, together they're going to do $14.15 billion, and they'll have 4,000 loan officers. And that's nearly inconceivable to think that a brokerage shop, and by the way, they're no longer a brokerage shop, but let's just call it that for right now. A brokerage shop could have 4,000 loan officers that did $14 billion. That is a juggernaut. And, my hat's off to Mike Cordes. And Dave, my background, and I'm sure Mike is on this call. I was born into the industry as a broker. I loved being a broker, loan officer. It was fun. It was great. My career took me into, IMBs and banks, but I love being a broker, and I don't have a negative thing to say about them. However, there is one number that leaped out at me that is different than what the news is reporting, and that is, if we just simply do math, if we say this entity of 4,047 loan officers is going to do $14 billion, well, what that tells me is they have a whole army of low producers. And I'm just simply saying the math. The math says that at $14.15 billion divided by 4,047 loan officers, that the average loan officer at NEXA does 0.7 loans a month. And before this acquisition, the average loan officer at NEXA did 0.69 loans per month. The loan officers at UMortgage are much more productive, coming in at 1.8 loans per month. But if you were on an IMB, this is what struck me. These loan officers don't have a place at an IMB or at a bank. Because at an IMB and a bank, you cannot afford a loan officer that's doing less than one loan a month. There's no way you can chop that candy bar and find a nut that works. And I say this not as criticism. And I also realize averages are averages, and that there are plenty of people on both those platforms that do plenty of business. And so, I don't mean to, castigate everybody. I'm not castigating anybody. I'm not name calling anybody. I'm just doing the math. But, it was amazing to me that, Cordes has been able to become the alchemist and take what other people wouldn't accept and turn it into gold. I mean, literally, he turned it into gold. He got a bunch of low-producing loan officers that had no home, gave them a home, and somehow made them financially productive for his company, which is fantastic. And David, as you know, there's just such fixed cost at an IMB or a bank for every employee, and the alchemy works because the way that a broker shop, and I'm like, they're not a broker shop now, but the way a broker shop works is the loan officer gets the maximum split of the revenue. Especially at NEXA, they only take a very small haircut. They take a haircut for allocation, for like tech allocation, and then they take a small haircut for NEXA's portion, but it's really a small amount of basis points. So the loan officer gets all the revenue, but the loan officer also gets all the expenses. And so what we call that is below the line type of compensation. A lot of comp up front, and then you have to pay your whole tech stack, your credit reports, your assistant, your insurance, your employee taxes. All that stuff has to come out underneath that, your marketing, all that kind of stuff. And the thing is, if you're entrepreneurial, you can figure it out. You can possibly make more money in that kind of environment. But at a bank, what happens is or IMB, the company pays all those things before you get your commission. Then you get your commission, and you really have very few things come out of it. You might bonus your PA. You might have some marketing expenses that you choose to pay out of it, but your commission essentially stays whole. And typically, my experience is that an IMB loan officer takes home more commission, but they're also less profitable to the entity they work for. But by being able to do that below the line versus above the line, what a broker like NEXA or a shop like UMortgage does is they push all the risk onto the loan officer, because they're going, hey, look, you do how many loans you do? You can do 1 loan, 2 loans, 1 million a month, $500,000 a month. I'm gonna get my 10 basis points, and whatever you get, fine. If you make money, fine. If you don't, fine. But there's no risk. They just get their cut. It's like they get their override without exposure. Now, both NEXA and UMortgage have built, infrastructure with some centralized value. So I'm just trying to give a very general view of how this is. But the point is, and I'm saying this in a very complimentary way, when I say the Alchemist, on the platforms I worked on, a loan officer doing less than 1 loan a month had no place. And like I said, NEXA has figured out how to, spin that into gold. So good for them. Now, one other thing, NEXA is really no longer a broker shop. 60% of their business is through correspondent. But we can't be confused about correspondent, because there's all sorts of levels of correspondent. And in truth, many correspondents are really just super brokers. And what that is, David, let's say that you brokered United Wholesale Mortgage, but then you go, hey, guys, I want to try to fund in my own name. And so United Wholesale Mortgage actually gives you a warehouse facility, a very small one. They kind of manage it for you. Your loans are still sent to United Wholesale Mortgage. They're still fulfilled there, but then they send it back to you to, push the, fund button. You get some control over servicing. So it is greater than being a broker, but it's not a bank or an IMB. Where an IMB is delegated, they're responsible for their credit underwriting. They can oftentimes fully comprehensive, IMB will sell directly to Jenny, to Fannie and Freddie, and that's something that a delegated broker can't do. So 60% of their business is delegated now, but it's a non-delegated correspondent, but it's not the full boat. But they've figured out how to make their money, and they're making plenty of money by all account. And then one other thing, David, and I'll get your feedback on this. The other thing that's really interesting that Mike Cordes has been able to do is he's starting to build a flywheel similar to what Rocket did. So think of Rocket being multi-billion-dollar company with, sold on the stock exchange worth, hundreds of billions of dollars, right? And they bought, Redfin, and they got Mr. Cooper, and now they have the front to end, from the front of the top of the funnel to the last payment. Well, Mike Cordes has started to do that same thing in his own environment. He's bought, a FSBO, a top of the funnel FSBO company, and he's just created a servicing company. By the way, led by Tammy Richards, a quality person, David, both you and I worked with, and he's done 40 acquisitions in the last 2 years. And not only that, by the way, their volume has grown 100% or doubled in just 2.5 years or 3 years, gone from 7 billion to 14 billion. So it's really an incredible juggernaut. And one of the things I cautioned, I did a LinkedIn article on this, I think yesterday, David. And one of the things I cautioned is if you're a traditional banker or an IMB and you just scoff at what he's accomplishing, you need to check your whole card, because that storm is only going to get bigger. And good for him. I mean, he's a good operator to make that happen. And one last thing, I know quite a few people at both UMortgage and NEXA, and every single person I've met from there, and I've met some of their senior leaders, are top quality people. And so keep your eye out. That's what I have to say. David, what's your thoughts on that?
I've got a thought, then a question, but McKenna's flashing our timer, telling us we're going over time. But a thought, then a question. I didn't really know the structure of was it NEXA? No. Who was the one? What's that?
NEXA is a broker shop, and UMortgage was actually an IMB. Very interesting. Okay. So a broker buying an IMB, a small one, is very interesting.
Yeah. So I wasn't really very familiar with their business model structure. And you told me about it, I think just yesterday. And, every business has costs. And the age old question of who should pay for what. But then it made me think about some other examples. Uber, that everyone knows, taxis, taxi companies, huge investment. They have to buy hundreds or thousands of cars, turn them into taxis, and Uber revolutionized that, where the taxi company, Uber, doesn't have to hold any of those liquid assets. Then you've got Apple's App Store, right? Instead of hiring hundreds of game developers or app developers to build your own closed network, they opened up a store. They don't have to have these thousands of employees who would it probably, with the amount of apps there are these days, which I guess half of them are junk. They'd have to hire possibly tens, if not hundreds of thousands of developers to create what's been created on both the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. And I thought of a few other examples, but I'll end it with a question, and let's keep it short. But with IMBs, I know every company's different. You know, if you sell under 2.5 loans per month and you get put on a PIP, or it might be 2.1 loans, 1.8 loans, whatever. Every IMB is different. Um, but that's usually the gist of it. If you sell below what we want you to sell, you're put on a performance improvement plan, coaching, and this, that, and the other. What do you think that minimum baseline is for Nexa now? Is it, you said that their average is 0.7 loans per month? How low
Point seven.
can they go? Because there's still some costs involved, I would imagine, that they have to vouch for. But
Yeah,
what do you think the minimum threshold is for them?
yeah, and my guess is that it's very minimal. I mean, it used to be zero. Now the thing is, Nexa has built a infrastructure that has to have some sort of recapture. So the 25% or 25 basis points tech fee is, but you don't collect it if you don't close a loan. So there has to be now some sort of minimum standard. I'm guessing, and this is purely a guess, David, their minimum standard probably runs one loan a quarter, and that's a pure guess.
Yeah.
And then if you go back to an IMB, I mean, just think of technology, David. A typical IMB might have 30 different technologies in their technology stack, their LOS or POS or CRM, how many different marketing tools. Each one has an integration. When we studied this at homeowners, I think we found that the average tech stack per loan officer was around $3,600. Just the tech
Mhm.
stack. That doesn't include their benefits. That doesn't include,
Per
and then
month.
when you do per month, yeah, per month. And think about it. If it's $100 for for MBS Highway, it's $100 for Mortgage Coach. It's $115 plus usage for Total Expert. It's a couple $100 plus usage for Encompass. If it's $100 or $85 a month for Optimal Blue, I could keep going. And then each one of those has a $15 or $25 integration fee, per month. It's unbelievable how quickly it blows up, right? And so when you get to that, that's a fixed cost. That doesn't matter whether you do a loan or not. You and if the company's on the hook for that, you can't go, hey, and plus you still have all the other things. There's in a company, there's things that you divide by head count, like HR. How many people in HR, it doesn't have anything to do with how many loans you do. It has how much head count you have. So you take HR expense and you divide it by head count. But then if you take underwriting, it's by how many units you do. So you have to do it different ways. But that's why there's a minimum production, because companies have a fixed cost they're paying for. And that's where, companies like Nexa, these brokers have solved that. That's why they're the alchemists, because they removed that, that overhead risk from themselves. And they said, hey, loan officer, you can be in the business as long as you want. If you pay for your stuff and we just get our, override, good for you. Good luck. The more you bring us, the better it is. Now, the thing is, to be competitive, they've been, really investing in the technology. That's where that tech allocation fee comes in. I'm sure loan officers have to figure out a way to cover it, or else they can't keep them around. And I know we're over, David, so we can move on.
Yeah. Mike Stowers, saw your comment. Appreciate it. Keep them coming. We're way behind Let's move on. Keep them coming. We'll show your next comment. Promise.
We're going to catch up, David. The rest of the topics are really light. We're going to catch up quickly.
Although we said that for the rest of the topics, they might be good topics to bring McKenna on camera. So anytime she comes on camera, it drags it out. So
I do love to bloviate.
It depends on how many, banquet beers she's had.
Yeah. Let's talk about sports betting.
This is crazy, David. Now, okay, McKenna, first, what is this image?
Okay, so whenever I think, I'm trying to find where my camera is.
You're like the Wizard of Oz. You're not. Oh, there you go.
There we go. I was trying to find where I put my camera. Anyways, whenever I think of sports betting, the first thing that my mind goes to domestic violence and fragile men. So that was why I put that. Also, I did look up your stat, the one that you had mentioned yesterday. I had actually never heard that, but I did look it up, and this is true. I looked this up maybe 5 minutes ago.
Give some context.
So we were talking, and Ron said that there was a stat that was debunked that DV goes up 40% during the Super Bowl or something like that.
It was a ridiculous number. It was like 62% of women are fear for getting beaten on Super Bowl day. And the number was totally debunked. Not to say that it's not elevated, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that that's not what you were trying to say. I did look it up, and it does go up by 10% every Super Bowl game. So like it goes up by 10, goes down 10. So during, sorry, not Super Bowl, during any NFL game, it goes up.
Oh,
so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wonder how that goes by region.
That's a great question. Also, in England, it's significantly worse.
Oh, you dang English people.
Whenever,
all right.
Anyways.
Don't go anywhere. Stay there. Don't go anywhere because we're going to keep getting your feedback here. All right, David. So I'm going to set this up here. 26% of Gen Z investors treat sports betting as a deliberate part of their long-term financial plan. Wow. Isn't that crazy? And then for millennials, it's 14%. And for Gen X, it's 6%. And boomers are like, peace out. We don't think it's any. But then the other stat here, half of Gen Z investors said they've moved money earmarked for investing into sports betting at least once in the last year. What in the world is that all about?
Dang.
Oh, was that? Thought you were going to keep going.
Nope. I'm going to set the table there. I'll leave it there for right now. What do you guys think?
One thing that I will say is that, I'm on social media, TikTok, YouTube. I try to stay away from Reels and YouTube Shorts just because they suck. And I am inundated with constant ads for betting, either sports betting or betting on like Love Island or The Bachelorette or things like that. Like they are specifically targeting Gen Z and now especially women to get women into this betting cycle of like, oh, The Bachelorette, you can vote on Love Island and stuff like that. And so I do think that it is an issue with it being pushed so much. I see ads like that multiple times a day. And every time I see them, I just roll my eyes. But I mean, we watched the World Cup, Dad, and the amount of sports betting adverts that we saw or commercials was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's crazy. David?
Nope. Go ahead.
McKenna, I've never watched Love Island. I can only guess what it's about, but I assume that it's recorded. So how do you bet on something that's recorded or previously recorded? It seems like that'd be kind of sketchy.
There's all kinds of Yeah, that is. I mean, there's all kinds of NDAs that the participants have to sign and all that kind of stuff.
True.
But yeah, I guess.
That's a great
That
point.
is true.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, NBA players throwing games. They get kicked out of the league. What if some schlep on Love Island? Anyway, that's what made me think about it. two other quick thoughts on this. So it's estimated that I don't remember who came with this number, that for every dollar deposited into a betting app, roughly 20 cents came straight from a long-term investing vehicle.
What does that mean? They withdrew the
20
money
cents
from
20 cents of every dollar deposited into a betting account came from an investment account.
Jeez.
Not from a bank account, a savings account. I guess the only thing worse is if it came from a credit card. But
Yeah.
and here's the whole thing. So Bloomberg ran this article, and they're guessing, they're hypothesizing. Well, why in the world would somebody think that way? Why in the world would somebody think betting is actually a real investment strategy? And so they conjured up this make-believe idea that it's really because the housing is unaffordable. That Gen Z thinks they're so far behind the curve on trying to afford housing that the only way they can make up the distance is by doing this reckless gambling, and that's what Bloomberg, as other people have speculated, without any evidence. And even if they had surveys that said that to me is just giving cover to these people doing really silly things. Because if you're going to try to figure out one way not to afford a house, would be to start betting, in my opinion. Do you guys have any closing thoughts on this? This is amazing, though. Any closing thoughts on this?
I just think of, not too long ago, just several years ago, 5 years ago, if you had a relative, a dad, a son, a best friend whose strategy to own a house or buy a new house was to go to the horse races every day, you'd say that that person is an addict and has a problem. Or if they're going to the casino every day as a strategy to build their financial net worth to the point where they can buy a house, you would call them an addict if they're going to the casino every day or betting on the dogs or whatever it is. But now it just seems so normal, or so common, I should say, not normal, but so common that it's just kind of, oh yeah, I bet on whether Trump would say huge 7 times in this speech or something, and no one thinks twice of it. And that's fine if you've got the money and it's for fun, but when it's now a strategy, I don't know, it's scary.
I would say, at least from what I've observed from my generation, it definitely is still seen that way, that a gambling addiction is still seen as an addiction. If you are obviously, like you said, like if you're gambling for fun, whatever, nuance to the conversation. But if you are incessantly gambling, in my generation and in my circles, that's very much still seen as an addiction and not a normal thing.
But not, obviously 26% of your generation is using it as an investment vehicle, which is crazy. And to your point earlier, McKenna, it is everywhere. David, they have you can do betting windows in sports arenas, right? How crazy is that? You can go bet at the game, like a horse race. So it's an interesting thing. And the whole thing is growing, but it also goes back to crypto. It's all these things. We're just making these huge bets. I would say at the same time, Gen Z is also ahead in investing in general than previous generations. They're much more disciplined in their investing, contrary to what we think. But then there's this interesting slice of Gen Zers that think betting is a real investment strategy, which is crazy.
Right. We had a comment from Mike: sports betting like a new form of being a day trader. When was in Miami, was surrounded by people on their phones playing in bets game from A to B. He also said dog races are the only real sports bet you can win on a regular basis. Is that true or is that a joke? Because he put LOL behind it.
He's making a joke. Is dog racing legal in the United States anywhere anymore? I think there's one dog track. McKenna, you can check. I think there's one dog track in the United States that's still open.
I think
right now.
We used to live in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, and somewhere between Williamsburg and Richmond there was a horse racing track, and I swear they used to have dog racing, and this is maybe only 10 years ago, maybe a little more.
Yeah, dog racing is frowned upon today. I think there's only one track. There might not even be any more in the United States. You might have to go to Mexico or foreign countries to see it. But
What's the
it's a hoot.
difference as far as like what I'm sure the reason it's been outlawed is because of cruelty. How is that
Mhm.
any more cruel than horse racing?
You know what I think it is? The dogs are much more expendable. And so you lose 2 races and you're euthanized if you're a dog. Or if you're
Ah,
a horse, you lose a couple races, you can maybe sell them to somebody as a pony or do something else with them. You don't automatically go to the glue factory. And so, and they
gotcha.
go through a lot more dogs than, they go through a lot more dogs than they do horses, you know.
The glue factory. Never heard that.
It could be, or, the puppy chow. Either way, neither one's good.
Commercial
Oh,
greyhound dog racing is illegal in 44 US states, but it remains
there you go.
legal
West
in a
Virginia.
small handful of states. West Virginia. All right, let's move on. Groceries.
That's because our congressmen have to have something to do on Fridays. All right, let's talk about groceries. This is very interesting, and stick with us because we're going to try to bring this across the finish line about how it means something to us. But there's been a bunch of price strategy changes. Matter of fact, Walmart announced that they're getting a refund of $2.9 billion from the tariffs that were collected that have to be refunded. They're going to apply all of that refund to lowering prices. At the same time, Kroger has just cut thousands of products in the last prices of thousands of products in the last couple of months. And overall, the grocery industry has increased their promotions by 10% in the last 12 months. And so you go, gosh, why is that happening? And a lot of people speculate, well, because there's a consumer revolt and prices are so high and their sales are dipping. And while that seems intuitively correct, that's not the case at all. As we know, consumers haven't stopped spending. They keep spending more and more every month, just like the PCE just showed yesterday. They seem to be impervious to price. And that's not really the driver. But what the most likely driver is that the two new European discounters that are coming into the market are starting to get influence and starting to eat up market share. And it's really scaring our grocery and other big box retailers. And so let's look at the data we got, McKenna.
Put my old man glasses on.
So this is just this is the Aldi's footprint, and that's what we're talking. We're talking about Aldi and Lidl, LIDL, and you can see Aldi now has 2,700 shops, and they're going to have 3,200 here in the next 24 months, and they're going to start approaching how many outlets they have, the same as Walmart. Now, Walmart, the average super center at Walmart's 200,000 square feet, and the average Aldi is around 10 to 12,000 square feet. So it's not apples to apples. And the average Walmart carries something like 200,000 SKUs, and the average Aldi carries like 10,000 SKUs. But what Aldi does is whatever they carry, they sell for less, and they sell roughly 15 to 20% less than Walmart. So they're a low price leader. They're no frills, they're a low price leader. And when they came to, they're German. When they came to England, the English retailers go, these people aren't going to work. Nobody wants this, bare bones, concrete floors, pay 25 cents to use a cart type of grocery thing. And then Aldi and Lidl ate up 20% of market share in a nanosecond and scared the bejesus out of those retailers who had to completely change their marketing strategy, and they became mass discounters too. And so Aldi and Lidl actually compressed the margin in grocery. Well, as they come to the United States and they start to get a footprint, Walmart, Kroger, and all these other places are going, oh my gosh, these people are going to do the same thing here. We better start defending it earlier. So you're starting to see price wars and you're starting to see price cuts. Now, David, before we turn it over to you and McKenna, you go, what the heck does that have to do with mortgages? Why are we talking about it? Well, because we talk about the Vibe session all the time, that the prices that people see in their face every day, the price of hamburger, the price of gas, all those things scares the heck out of them. It scares me. I mean, if you can't afford a pound of hamburger, how are you going to afford to buy a house? And that's that Vibe session. Even though you're probably pretty secure in your finances, you get every day see these massive, huge prices, and you're scared, and it paralyzes you, and so you're unable to actually make a decision that's really the best decision for your family. And so, what my hypothesis is as we start to see prices come, and McKenna, you can leave that up there. As we see prices come back down, you might get that Vibe session reversed, and you might see people starting to get out of that paralysis as they get more comfortable with where prices are. Now, McKenna, the reason why I asked you to keep this, here's the thing. Look at the black. Look at the red line. Red line is Walmart. Look at the blue line. The blue line is Aldi. So you can see through 2026, Aldi started to really pick up on market share. So Walmart started really cutting their prices to try to start to get back. And now you can see to today, Walmart's price cutting strategy is bringing foot traffic back into the store. As foot traffic comes back into Walmart and to places like other grocery outlets, which are gray, you can see that business is dropping now from Aldi. And so the price war, their pre-positioning lower prices is starting to turn the curve back in their favor. Dave and McKenna, first, do you have Aldi's in your neighborhood? Do you shop at them?
We have Aldi's and Lidl. Lidl.
Yeah.
Yes,
there's
we
only
have
200
both.
Lidl. How is Lidl? I haven't been to one. They're all on the East Coast. Only 200 of them.
I've never been to one, but I've been to Aldi's. I've been grocery shopping for my mom for the last year, and always go to Publix and then Aldi's. And here's my thoughts. Buying a house, or looking for a house, the process of buying a house is a very emotional process, and more so than a mathematical one. It very much is, and everyone might be different. For you, Ron, I doubt if you go to buy another house, it's going to be an emotional thing for you, because that's not who you are. You're a very analytical, mathematical person. But for most people, I would bet that it's a more emotional thing than a mathematical thing. And so it makes me think of my wife, Kelly. She goes shopping every week, sometimes multiple times a week. And McKenna can account for this, but every time she comes, she is so proud and shows us the receipt and tells us how much she saved by using the BOGOs and this and that and the other. And so when I think of that in terms of housing, I think, because the fact that it's an emotional decision, these small wins every week, they kind of just will tend to build confidence, right? More so than like what people are seeing on the headlines. And so when groceries are coming down, when a pound of hamburger meat is coming down, and they're getting these weekly emotional wins, and that plays into the larger role of buying a house, because it's such an emotional thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. McKenna, do you shop at Aldi's or Lidl's at all?
Doesn't shop anywhere.
I don't shop. The only thing that comes to my mind is more of just a funny story of the last time that my dad and I were in Aldi's.
Okay, let's hear
I
it.
don't remember.
We were shopping for his mom, my grandmother, and it was me, my dad, and my boyfriend, and she had said chicken. And so whenever she said that, and my dad mentions that she asked for chicken, I asked the question, did she specify white or yellow chicken? And they both made that exact same face. So for context, I'm getting red. So for context, I lived in Guatemala for a number of years, and there was a difference between white and yellow chicken. I swore that was a thing. I knew it was a thing. I ended up, after my dad and my boyfriend had given me so much shit for asking that, I finally had to text my best friend who lived in Guatemala with me, and I had to be like, Mary, was I drunk, or was there a difference between white and yellow chicken? And she said, yes, there was. I asked what it was. We have no idea. But there was a difference, and everybody wanted white chicken instead of yellow chicken. White chicken was more expensive, and so you always wanted to get white chicken. Why? No idea.
Was it maybe they
Well,
called the yellow chicken the dark pieces of the meat?
Nope, you could get white and yellow drumsticks.
Well, what happens about the brown hens or the red roosters? Like, what are those called?
I don't know. I don't know what the specification was. I even looked it up, and I could find nothing. So if anybody that's watching is from Guatemala or from a country that has the difference between white and yellow chicken, please comment and let me know, because I don't know. I have no idea.
All right. So are you guys white or yellow American cheese?
I'm not really an American
Neither.
cheese. That's not my first go-to. McKenna and I are both more pepper jack, but if you put one of those two in front of me, I'd probably go with yellow.
Oh, I'd go with white.
Yeah.
Kraft
But
And
neither?
how
singles,
about
ew.
white or brown eggs?
I don't care.
They all taste the same. It's all eggs.
Do you have typically brown eggs on the East Coast? You have brown eggs or do you have white eggs in your
We got both.
basically your grocery
Yeah,
store?
both.
Yeah, both.
That's because you're in the South. You can have both. Up in the Northeast, it's all brown.
Really?
Isn't the white eggs where they just run it through a chemical process, so they last longer or get rid of possible feathers, or what is the process, or
No,
why do they do it?
the process is just cleaning them. It does not remove color from the eggs. It just depends on the chicken that lays it. Different breeds of chicken lay different eggs.
I thought the white eggs is because they cleaned it with a certain chemical or solution or something. No,
No.
no.
I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't know. But we're far afield now. This has been great.
Hold on, we've got a good comment from Mike. We've got a good comment from Mike.
All right.
Seems like I've seen yellow pollo at local Mexican market. White American cheese, brown eggs.
Yes.
Ooh, Belinda. Belinda says yellow could be marinated chicken, but you're buying it raw. Oh, I guess it can still be marinated.
It could be, but white was more expensive. That's the thing. That's what I remember. Yellow was cheaper, and so if you're buying
white was
marinated, I
this
would
week's chicken,
assume
yellow was last week's chicken.
it could be. Honestly, I don't know. Again, if somebody does know, please let me know. I want to know. I'm so curious what the difference
you were just
is.
bamboozled.
I absolutely
they were
was
like-
not.
I think all the locals were probably like, let's just get these, let's confuse these white Americans and make them think there's a difference between two kinds of chicken meat.
You know what? If they did, good for them. That's hilarious.
Who would have thought
All
we'd
right,
go over on this topic?
Yeah, seriously. Let's move on. Let's talk about loyalty.
Well, are you loyal to the yellow chicken or to the white chicken?
And thanks for all the comments,
all right, so
by the way.
this is a really interesting topic, and McKenna, let's just go to the data. This comes from the Visual Capitalist, and what it is it's loyalty. It's car brand loyalty, and what that means is what percentage of your past clients come and buy from you again. So when McKenna gives you the bigger picture here in 1 second, you can see Tesla is number one. 64% of Tesla owners go back and buy another Tesla as their next car. So 64%. And you can see from the list, and then for Ferrari's number two is 61%. But the top of the scale is dominated by Toyota, Subaru, Honda, Ford, Chevrolet, Nissan. And if we go to the next slide, if we look at the bottom of this list, it's most of your luxury cars. It's Maserati, Range Rover, Rolls-Royce, Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Cadillac, Jeep. All those are on the bottom half. And so there's no correlation for the cost of the car as evidenced by the two top slots are the most expensive, followed by a bunch of discounts. It's really about the experience, and experience doesn't equal price. And when you look at it, what is it that drives experience? It's a really interesting they came up with what the NPS is that drives experience. And it has to do with did somebody, how was a customer treated during their transactions and during repair transactions? Did they treat the customer right? Did they keep the customer well informed? Did they explain what was going on? Did they deliver what was promised? And did they follow through consistently? That's all it took. But here's what's really interesting. This is what caught my eye. Not that this is plenty interesting, and we're going to talk about, David, the individual brands here. But what caught my eye is that, let's say Subaru. Subaru has actually, there's two types of loyalty. There's loyalty to the brand, meaning I own a Subaru, I'm going to go buy a Subaru again. Then there's loyalty to the actual dealership. I bought my car at Drew Ford on the corner, and I'm going to go back to Drew Ford because they treated me right. Well, the actual brand loyalty is more than double over dealer loyalty, meaning that the consumer really doesn't care so much what dealer they bought it at. They'll shop around dealers. They're loyal to the brand, not to the dealer. And to me, that just seems like such a parallel to loan officers and their companies, because forever companies have tried to figure out how to get the loyalty with the end consumer with the company, not the loan officer. It battles who owns the customer. And since I've been in the industry, different companies I work for is how do we get to own the customer, not the loan officer. And so then there's in this different article, I attached 3 articles in my LinkedIn on this. There was strategies about how the dealer or how the sales rep can start to build relationship to actually put a fence around the consumer, and so their company doesn't usurp that relationship. And that was really what the topic was about. And super interesting. But David and McKenna, does that list, align with what you think on what car loyalty should be?
Okay, this could easily turn into a debate, conversation, argument around Tesla. I'll go to bat with any one of these. But what I think of is the transaction of buying a car is polar opposite of buying a house, just in the time that it takes. That you're dealing with the salesperson, whether it be a loan officer or a car salesman, right? Typically, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that have examples of a car salesman where they just did an incredible job and they would go back to that person every car they might buy in the future. But I would argue that that's probably not the majority of people out there. I would argue that anyone that's ever bought a car or multiple cars, the overwhelming majority of experience are probably negative. Ron, you did a hilarious video about that, the last car that you bought. That was funny. But I bet you that the overwhelming majority, and I'd love to hear in any of the comments, if you favorably, if you have a favorable opinion of the car buying experience or a non-favorable opinion of the car buying experience. I've no idea, 9 cars, 10 cars in my life. The only experience that I've ever had where I was like, wow, that was kind of cool, kind of fun, kind of whatever, is when I bought my Tesla. It's the only experience that I've ever had. McKenna, I can feel your eyes rolling. I've got a couple more points, but I'll open the floor to McKenna.
Well, I can't say much because I've never bought a car, so but the only thing that I can think of, just thinking about that, for me, I'm very practical. I don't want a whole bunch of bells and whistles. Bells and whistles would be nice, but as long as it's reliable and doesn't break down on me, and I don't even have to think about maintenance aside from oil and brakes, then that's the car for me. So any
Tesla.
No, definitely not. Any Corolla or Camry or just something that like runs and will last for what feels like forever. That's the car for me. Anything with a bunch of issues or has that reputation, keep it away from me. I would love, my dream car is a 1995 Jeep Cherokee. I would love that. But I don't know anything about cars, and I don't have the money to spend on getting it fixed and tuned and this and that and the other. So I just know that it's not in the cards for me to probably ever own that car.
McKenna, I'd love to go with you on the first time you go buy a car. I'll just be like in the bushes, like the secret camera guy, just cracking up.
No, I would love for you to be an active participant and speak for me whenever I buy a car. I don't want anything to do with that.
It's crazy, David. The one thing I'll say, the difference between a great experience and a horrible experience, when you get a great car buying experience, you're like, man, those people are good. Like they have super sales skills. And then when you have a bad experience, you go, man, these people are bad. They're so bad. And you're right. I remember when Bill and I bought a car a couple years ago, and it just was a comedy. It was a comedy of error. And I just kept recording every different comedy, and it was like I was on a Saturday Night Live skip. I was like, I can't even believe this. Up to and including when they handed me this, electric vehicle that had no charge. that had to get towed to get charged someplace. Like, that's a great idea right there, folks. David, what are your points? We got all the time. We canceled our next topic, so you can let it roll.
Well, I'll get to my thoughts there. McKenna, let's show Belinda and Michael's comments because those are good, and then I'll get to my thoughts around it, around customer service. So Belinda says, "Oh, we should have blurred out the brand name. Our apologies, Hyundai, but our Hyundai experience was ridiculously bad. The only time that was decent was going directly to the general manager." I remember Ron telling that story. I think you told the story on a social media video and a post, maybe even a newsletter. And Ron took pictures of the guy's sales desk, and he just had shit all over his desk, and paperwork was everywhere, and it was just a terrible experience. Let's move on to Michael's comment. So Michael has a good experience through a car broker. I've never done, well, is Carvana considered a broker? They're a broker, right?
No,
Or-
David, that's where you
no?
like order your car, and the broker actually submits the order to the factory, and they build your car for you, and then they deliver it like on a tow truck. So it's kind of feels like Carvana, but that's what happens when you order a car.
Gotcha. Well, my best experience was through Tesla. And if you've never bought a Tesla, I bought mine in early 2020. So it was during when COVID just hit. But from what I understand, my experience was not too dissimilar from what it is now post COVID. But I did all my paperwork, everything, which was not overwhelming at my house. I got emails, I got this, that, and the other. Everything was super simple. There was no haggling. Some people might look at this as a bad thing. Others might see it as a good thing, but there's no haggling with Tesla, to my knowledge. The price that they advertise is the price that you buy it for, and there's no haggling. There's no, well, could you do it for this? Could you do it for that? They don't do that at all. It's like if you walk into a Nordstrom, you're not going to try and talk them down off of a $300 suit or a $2,000 suit, or maybe you will. You're not going to try and talk them down from a 20. Yeah. That was a bad example. It was the first one that came to my head. You're not gonna try and talk them down on a $20 t-shirt. Let's use that as an example. Ron's like, that's the same with Tesla. And like I said, some people might see that as good, some as bad. I loved it. I showed up. I didn't meet a single person. I didn't shake a single hand. I didn't have to talk to a manager. And they had already had my phone programmed. I walked up to the car and everything started, and I drove away. It was amazing. And like I said, that was during early COVID, but from what I know, the experience is not too dissimilar from what it was then.
That's so funny, David. If I was in that experience, I'd have to sit there and just sit down and stare at the car because I had no idea how to make a move. I'm like, help me! What now? Help me!
I'd test driven several prior to
that. You're a techie guy. That's the whole deal. McKenny, have any closing thoughts? We have any closing thoughts? We can make this a wrap.
I'll close it with this staying on this topic just for a second. But I think the whole point of that was kind of, what was the point in that? It was building loyalty and customer service. And I think of Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has and we did a bit on this, Ron, 4 months ago ish, could have been 6, I have no idea, where we talked about overall rankings for fast food restaurants or restaurants. And Chick-fil-A, I think, was high on most, if not the leader in most of the rankings. And I think about Chick-fil-A and why people are so loyal to that brand. And I don't think it's because of any singular meal that they had, but it's because the food is consistently good. The restaurant's clean, and the employees, they've been trained. You can think it's fake or not or whatever, but they've been trained on how to be courteous and how to make you feel like you're wanted in their restaurant and that you're appreciated in their restaurant. Now, I'm not a huge Southwest Airlines person. I just hate the the cattle type lineup that you have to do. And I think they got rid of that. I don't know. I think you've got
They
assigned
did.
seats,
They did.
but that was but that was recent. And so prior to that change, um, they still had the same beloved followers. And again, I'm not a Southwest fan, but you've been hiding on a rock under a rock if you didn't know that they've got just a massive following and a beloved following. And it's they kept things simple. Um, Bags flew for free, and the amount of viral videos of their flight staff, doing performances when they're having to read the safety checks, whether it's singing or whatever, they've gone viral multiple times. And so I get it. I get the some brands are just absolute geniuses in building loyalty, and others are not. So what is Belinda talking crap again about me in the comments in my Tesla
No,
obsession?
no, she's not. Not the.
What's
I
she
just think.
saying?
I'll be thinking. Actually, look at it.
You must have want that Tesla. Not well, they don't negotiate. So, as far as I know, I don't think they negotiate. Their
I'm sure they
price is
invite you
their
to shop.
price.
I'm sure they're inviting
Shop
you to
what?
shop all the time. Shop often.
Maybe, maybe. If you have any knowledge that I'm wrong in that, and they actually do negotiate, or I'm sure they might throw in a free t-shirt or a car charger here and there, but to the extent that other cars you go in and the sticker price is 40,000 and you walk out and you just bought it for 35,000, you got 5,000 knocked off, and I got an amazing deal, yet their MSRP, their cost is like 38,000. So anyway, we've gone way over.
All right, so we have two
Any-
call outs there from the Kings. Hold on, we have two call outs from the Kings. First, from McKenna, if you know anything about yellow and white chickens, please report back. And then from David, if you negotiated a price on Tesla, tell them gently. So to break the news to them gently. But we'll look forward to that feedback this week.
I'd be like, man, I paid this for my Tesla and I could have got it for that. Dang it. If only I'd known.
Let him live his dream. Don't let him know.
All right. Anywho, it's been over an hour, which we always go a little bit past an hour. My mom just texted me. I was like, she says, you're both crazy about the eggs. Not quite sure what that means. Just that the fact that they're white and yellow were crazy.
Oh, let's get your mom on. She could clear it.
All right. If you've joined us, we appreciate you joining. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where we post pretty much everything. If you're just on our Facebook or LinkedIn, you might not see everything. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. Look us up, Little Nessie Media on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. With that, Ron, cheers.
David, cheers. Thank you. McKenna, cheers. Here's to happy eggs, happy chickens.